80% of New Year resolutions fail in the first month. Let that sink in. And yet, every January, we step into a new year surrounded by resolutions, promises that we make ourselves about who we're going to become. For some, they're a genuine spark for growth and change. For others, they can quickly turn into a negative verdict on ourselves or a reminder of who we failed to be last year, not who we still have the chance to become. Tonight, we're going to unpack that tension. We'll talk honestly about how New Year resolutions can help us move forward without becoming a stick that we beat ourselves with. What it means to aim higher while still leaving some space for compassion. And more importantly, how we can approach change in a way that's sustainable, real, and grounded in practicality. And to do this, we're joined by our usual mob of misfits, Kieran, Rob, and Will, providing the same collection of strong opinions, half-finished thoughts, and the deeply held convictions we bring every week. But we're also joined by Josh, who I like to think of as a hybrid Gordon Ramsay and Professor X, and you'll soon find out why. Josh, joining us remotely, brings a calm, thoughtful, therapeutic perspective to the chaos, helping to provide a more professional perspective on the subject. So whether you're feeling hopeful, conflicted, motivated, or perhaps already exhausted by the pressure of new year, new you, as always, you're invited to stick around, have a listen, and maybe learn something about how to set realistic New Year resolutions that drive positive and sustainable change.
Man, oh man, life hits harder than we planned. So we gather, we chat, we reset again at the council of men.
All right, well, another episode,
Yeah, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
another new year. Well, first new year for us, actually, on the podcast.
Yeah, on the podcast, yeah.
Yeah, because we were born yesterday.
We were born yesterday. Well, this was born last year, so it's been a year since our last episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I'm not going to bother introducing the usual mob of misfits, but to our avid viewers, they will hopefully have noticed that there's a fifth addition to this group, and we have Josh. And Josh, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. It's
Pleasure.
quite late. Before we get into obviously today's session, Josh, I wondered if you could just introduce yourself for a few minutes and give a bit about your history and your experience.
Yeah, so I trained as an apprentice at 17 years old. I've been a chef for 15 years now. I started off up at the hotel in Brasserie for 2.5 years. And then I moved to some of the fine dining side where I was doing 80, 90 hours a week.
Wow.
Moved on to a restaurant called Caravan in King's Cross, doing 700-800 covers Saturday and Sunday for brunch. During the week, we could be doing 300-400 covers for lunch and for dinner, so that was quite hectic. Fast forward a little bit, had my own sort of mental health issues over the years. I find in hospitality there isn't much help. And if I'm going to level with you guys, towards the end of 2023, if it wasn't for the help of my best friend and my wife, I probably wouldn't be sat here talking to you, which is why it's really, really important for guys especially to talk. Therapy wise, I trained at Regent's University. My therapist for the last couple of years is a teacher there, and she is a cognitive hypnotherapist. The beauty of being a cognitive hypnotherapist is you treat the person as opposed to the condition, because we all see things in a different way. So it's not really a one size fits all solution. It kind of adapts to the person, which I think is great. Stereotype wise, whenever I say I'm a hypnotherapist, people think I'm going to pull out a pendant and hypnotize them and make them do things that they don't want to do, but that's really not the case. If someone could ask me what it is, it's just a conversation like this.
So it's a bit
And
like normal therapy. A little bit like
yeah,
normal therapy.
essentially, I work with the subconscious as opposed to the conscious mind, because your conscious mind will just go, no, I don't want to do that, or is that a good idea? But that's why if I send any meditation work to a client and they go to sleep, that's fine, because the only sense that works when we're asleep is our hearing. And apparently that goes back to when we were cavemen and we needed to hear if a saber-toothed tiger was going to come and rip our heads off. I'm sure someone will come and correct me on that, but that's what my lecturer told me, so we'll go with that.
We'll go with it. And
Yeah.
and what is it, Josh? I mean, obviously I have quite limited understanding of hospitality. I've worked in hospitality, but front of house. But what is it, do you think, that makes the profession that you were in as stressful? I mean, you mentioned 80-hour week. That's obviously very intense, but is it the demands of the industry? Is it the demands of the people you work with? Is it the kind of perfectionist nature of it and you can't get anything wrong? Or what is it about the nature of the industry you were in that kind of forces people to have at times those kind of, because I've heard stories in the past of other similar sort of chefs who did it for a certain amount of time and just found it too stressful. Like, what is it about the industry that you think that
I
can
think
lead
the
people to?
issue is we use it as a badge of honor. So it would be, how many hours did you work this week? Oh, I did 80 hours this week. I haven't had a break. I haven't eaten. I mean, for example, on my part, my head chef banned me from drinking Red Bull because I essentially used to survive on Red Bull, coffee, and fear. Um, and it would just be a case of I'd run around like a chicken, I wouldn't get anything done, and they just banned me.
Wow, that's crazy.
Um, I think it's also down to the fact of the lack of empathy
Mm.
Mm.
in regards
But
to
it's quite,
simply use it as a badge of honor. But as soon as people realise that this is a competition with no trophy at the end,
yeah, it's quite
you
a
don't get a
masculine.
well done, you did an entire week no break or survived on coffee trophy. The only
Yeah.
person it's going to hurt is yourself.
Yeah. Do you find it's quite a masculine industry?
Oh,
It's quite
100%.
sort of,
And it's just ironic, really, the stereotype of, oh, men or women should stay in the kitchen, which I think is totally wrong. Also considering it's a male-dominated environment. I
yeah,
personally, I love working with women in the kitchen because it lowers the testosterone levels
yeah. Well,
and it
it's not to
calms us
say,
down.
I think it's not to say that it's not men and women, but I think that the tendency towards being a bit more it's a bit like construction, I guess. Is it tends to be a bit more regimented, a bit more kind of it's a bit more like kind of being in the army. You're put into regiments. There's someone who's in charge. There's someone below that, and you kind of have a pecking order that's very very clear. It's not a soft environment at all. And I mean, what I'd like to understand, because I mean, the only experience I have of that kind of industry is television. It's watching Gordon Ramsay, it's
The
watching
The
bear.
The Bear.
bear.
Yeah.
I like
It's
how the
watching The
bear
Bear.
captures that sensory overload, that kind of constant bombardment.
Yeah,
That's very familiar to like back of house work.
yeah. Is that realistic?
I have to say, the most realistic show I've ever seen is The Bear. I really, really love it. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but do you remember the episode where the car came through the wall, the Christmas dinner,
Yeah,
where they
Yeah.
were at a point when I was watching that, I had to sit there with a pillow because it started to like trigger me a little bit because it is very, very realistic. That is what it's like. It is carnage, and some people love it. I mean,
yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
some
That
Yeah.
absolute horror stories that I could bore you with.
Yeah, no, we'll probably set that for a separate topic,
maybe.
Josh. Maybe we'll get you in studio for that one as well.
Yeah.
We could talk about the stresses of working in hospitality. That could be an episode itself, but obviously that's not what this one's about. Before we move on to, obviously you mentioned, Josh, that you can't, you now focus in hypnotherapy, etc. And obviously we're going to look at your expertise within the context of New Year's resolutions, right? But before we get to that, Josh, it's going to become a tradition. Obviously, this is just episode 2, but it's going to become a tradition on this podcast where we do ask our guests one kind of simple question just as part of their introduction. And that is that when you meet new people, what is the one thing that people usually get wrong about you?
Mm.
I'm very much an extroverted introvert these days. People assume I love to be center of attention because I have a very big personality. But I think these days, when my glass is full, I just want to go home.
Yeah.
Have you now become sort of a creature of comfort?
I'd say so these days. I think my wife would definitely say she's calmed me down quite a lot, considering I used to go out 2, 3 times a week.
You used to go out 3 times a week in addition to working 8-hour weeks. Oh man, if I was your wife, I'd
Thumbs
definitely
up.
be having
That's
the
two
same.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
I'd be having the same words with you, Josh, if that was your
I mean,
wife.
to be
That's for
fair,
sure.
this is before she met me, so I have to say that.
All right, good. Well, obviously we're talking about New Year's resolutions. I'm sure some of us are frankly sick of probably speaking about them, but we need to speak about them. Josh, a question for you just to kind of kick off this segment is, when you do hear people talking about new year, new me, all that, from a professional perspective, what's your honest reaction? Can it be motivating? Can it result in guilt? Are you skeptical? What's your kind of professional opinion when people do talk about that kind of new year, new me?
Well, it's an interesting one because, again, habits are really made to be broken, and it depends if it's on a superficial or more of a deeper level. So, again, for me personally, this year I'm kind of working on checking in with myself more because I know you guys are probably familiar with whatever you do outside of the podcast. When you go and go and go, and you don't give your brain time to reset, because it's a bit like you run a marathon, you keep going and going and going, and only a couple of days later do you feel your muscle seize up,
Hmm.
and just because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it's not there. So if it's for the right reasons, New Year's resolutions are good. I've only really started making some of my own due to the lessons I've learned in life. In the past, I haven't bothered.
Can I just ask you something on that, Josh? Because
Sure.
I think you hear this term checking in with yourself quite a lot these days. And it's a very simple question, but what does that mean in reality and how do you do that?
So, me personally, I have an inner dialogue with myself. So, for example, if I get on the train home from somewhere or I'm writing my notes with a client, I'll sit there quietly 10 or 15 minutes, sometimes even in a dark room, no sound. And I just sit there and I actually have an inner dialogue and a conversation with myself. How are you
Hmm.
doing? How are you
Mm,
feeling?
Yeah.
I have a notepad by my bed where I write down 3 positives of my day, which I call 3 gifts, which is one thing I give to my clients because it trains the brain to look for positives in the day.
mhm.
And then the more you do it, you'll build up a habit. So that's how I
Yeah.
do it. I have a physical conversation in my head. Might sound weird, but it works for me.
Yeah. But it's sort of that subconscious thing that you were talking
Yeah,
about before. You're training your subconscious,
yeah.
which that's the thing I'm most interested in. Why I'm excited to meet you, to be honest, is I've got loads of New Year's resolutions, and I don't know if you want to hear them all, but I do it every year. I kind of get into a habit of I have to give myself really, really strict rules to get myself to do things. And I think I really struggle to get myself to kind of just lock in on something and then get my mind to keep wanting to do it and get into a habit. It's not something that comes natural to me. So it'd be interesting to know if you kind of have any tricks.
I think before we get to that quickly, Josh, just to interrupt on what you said there, Rob, like the only problem I have with resolutions and why I think the majority of them fail, and the stats back that up, 80% of resolutions fail within the first month, right? And we'll put the citation to that in the description. But I think one reason for that, and Josh, again, you can answer Rob's question, also answer this one if you'd like, but is that I think resolutions are kind of all or nothing. They leave no room for
Mm,
mistakes
I think
because
that's a you thing.
it's not a you thing. But like, for example, let's say a resolution is, all right, I never want to drink again. I'm going to stop drinking and be teetotal, right? You go 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and then you have that one drink and you think, all right, well, that's me screwed. I might as well regress back to my
But
old
I think that's a you thing. I think that's a you kind of going in with that mentality of just I'm going to drive it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to kind of stick to my goals. And if I start to slip a little bit, then that's the end of it. I think you got to get away from that mentality.
Mhm.
And also, I think you are right in saying that it can be all or nothing. So when you write down the New Year's resolution, that's the resolution. But what a lot of people don't do, and I know I don't do, is write down or think about properly how you're going to achieve that. So there are steps to getting there, but you don't think about that when you've just got the end goal in mind all the time.
Yeah, and it's got to be. I mean, Josh, I don't know. You know this better than we do, but I think, from my opinion, it would be more sort of, if it was again that analogy of stopping drinking. Maybe it's like, right, I won't drink as much, or maybe I'll drink less, or I'll only go out on X number of days, and you kind of gradually introduce
Exactly. Yeah.
But resolutions are also very short-termist. Resolutions don't really look towards the future or anything. They're not broken down into any kind of increments. They're sort of like, I'm doing this one thing, and you've got no measurements to it. You've got no idea of what success is or isn't. And it's very kind of like,
Puts pressure.
it puts pressure, and it's also just ambiguous, really. Even if you say something like, I'm not going to be drinking again, even that's ambiguous.
that.
So it's not like, setting a goal or something. It's just something you say when you're feeling a little motivated after the Christmas spirits and all the other spirits. And yeah.
The
So
Holy Spirit.
yeah, the most important
That's the one you
spirit of
use.
them all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, Josh. I mean, in your opinion, sort of like I mentioned, one of those stats that I came across before researching this was that, 80% of resolutions fail within the first month. In your opinion, what do you think? Why do you think that is?
Number of reasons. Well, I mean, a really, really big one is sometimes you make a New Year's resolution for other people. So your brain's not really in it. It's like when someone comes to see me. If I say, "Well, have you come to see me, or how did you find me?" "Oh, my partner made me." Then I'd say, then I can't talk to you because there will be a blockage there. You have to be doing it for yourself. You are your number one fan. But also, again, you've probably heard it before with the marathon analogy. You're not going to get out of bed and run 26 miles, are you? I want to give up drinking. But then look at how much do you drink a week? How much do you drink a month? Slowly, slowly. If you don't do things slowly, some people can do cold turkey. I can't, definitely, because I'm all or nothing. And then, like you said, I'm done after 4 weeks.
Yeah. That's an important point, though, because I think this is the point you just made, and I told you off is it's your fault, and you go, oh, I've made a resolution, I've got to stick to that resolution exactly, or that's the end of it. But what, again, I guess coming back to that previous question, is it would be really interesting. So if I was to come into you and say, look, I want to improve myself, I've tried traditional therapy, I've tried every other thing I can think of. What would you what would be your process in kind of helping? Is that something you would help with, I guess, as well?
Well, the first question I'd ask you is, who are you doing it for?
Mm.
And then, so again, if it's, I've been told I drink too much, straight away you've lost, because that hasn't come from your own brain. So anything I do with clients is what I call indirect permissive. And the best word I can use is a really small word. If you just say if. So if I said to you, if there was a way that you could keep hold of your New Year's resolution for the entire year, what would it be? And then it makes the client think. Because at the end of the day, the less I talk, the better, because it's not about me. It's about the client.
So if I came into you and I said I want to stop drinking,
Yeah.
then what would you say in return? So you would say how.
So firstly, I'd say, how much do you drink a day?
Second thing is, please put that beer bottle down, Robert.
Because realistically, if you don't know how much you're consuming per day, week, month, not exactly, then how can you stop something if you don't know what it's doing to you?
That's always a tough question to answer. I know whenever you go to the doctor and they say how
Yeah,
many
how
units
many
of
units?
alcohol, no one really
I
puts down.
always tell
Yeah.
the truth.
Do you?
No.
Yeah.
Or rather, I could ask
you had
is
me
it
there.
affecting your life?
But on that, Josh, you've spoke about the who. I just want to introduce the why, because I think to stick to a resolution, you need to know why you're doing it. And if, going back to the drinking analogy, you're talking about you want to stop drinking, if you're doing it for yourself, you've covered that, that's fine. You then need to ask why you're doing it. And it goes back to the question of how it's impacting your life. And I think moving to that stage will help determine whether you're going to stick to it, because if you're doing it for the right reasons, then you're more likely. Whereas if you just come up with something for the sake of it, or because somebody else has told you, linking it to the who, then it's not going to be as sustainable.
Well, that's a great point, because one thing that also came up was another reason why the resolutions do tend to fail is they can at times be rooted in external pressure. So, for example, we all have social media, right? And you get all these influencers that say, I've stopped drinking and this has happened to my life. I revolutionized I now wake up at 4 a.m., do a cold plunge, run a marathon, and then I start my day. It's like people just see that and they say, I want to do that. And that influences their resolution. So it's not genuinely, to Josh's point, it's not coming from them. It's coming from an external pressure. So it's influenced by this kind of societal expectations or trends, right? Which obviously results in
the cold plunge.
Well, you see all these like things on LinkedIn where CEOs, their daily routine: wake up at 4 a.m., do this, do that. It's not. Come on.
Well, I'm sure someone does it, but I think it's an interesting point, right? It's because a lot of the time when you wake up and you come up with New Year's resolutions, the first thing you do is you come up with, here's all the things that I want to do, and the thing that trips you up is the motivation. So, I mean, what I'm interested in as well is kind of the next step after that is I've come to you, I've gone, right, I drink X amount of beer a week. And you're probably getting the idea that we're all alcoholics here.
No, just you, Robert.
but yeah, it's what the kind of next step is, and what your process is, kind of pulling people through the process of getting their subconscious trained into not wanting to drink all the time, or not wanting to do something that they're doing all the time.
Yeah,
So
do you
the
have an
first
example?
session with a client would be something called a history take, where again you would say, I want to quit drinking, and then you just go into the deep structure. Was there a time in your past where you wasn't drinking as much as now? If you can think of a reason that's happening in your life now that's happening now, what would it be? And you'd go into the context, because context is key. If I don't know where it started, then I won't be able to help you. And then it will go into things like, when you're drinking, and is there a specific part of it that you don't like? Are you a bad drunk? What kind of feeling do you get when you're, how can I put this? When you're trying to communicate with people? Are you upsetting your partner? Things like that. And then we start talking about how you feel physiologically, or what you see, because everyone sees things in a different way. It's the classic glass half full, half empty, isn't it? Someone can have 1 pint and be all right. Someone might need 5 or 6.
Yeah.
It's
You
all
said,
about
Robert,
context.
that
Is key.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. You said a little earlier off the podcast that the cat peed on your bed sheets. Was it the cat?
What?
When you get drunk, what behaviors do you want to stop?
I think
This is
Robert
actually
thinks
turning
stay
into
off the podcast.
This is turning into an intervention for Robert, isn't
I
it?
think so.
Josh,
Yeah.
can I?
It's not me.
Can I
No,
just,
go ahead, go ahead,
Josh, can I just follow up on that? Because I think what Robert's driving at is intrigued by this idea of hypnotherapy. And I want to focus in on, if someone, we'll stay on the stop drinking analogy, how do you decide what's best between cognitive behavioral therapy, between talking therapy, between the other types of therapy that's available, and hypnotherapy? Because it is a very specific type of therapy that a lot of people are scared of, particularly for the reason that you identified at the start, and that you think people are going to come along with this coin and dangle it in front of you and you're going to control them, and you're not in control. So can one just reassure people that they are in control, and then tell us why hypnotherapy works?
Well, firstly, in regards to how they can decide on what therapy, the best thing I would always say is, when you speak to someone on the phone, in person, you will know if they're right for you. You just know. You get a vibe off of someone. You meet someone for the first time and you go, I'm not sure about you. You don't know why, but you just don't. In regards to not scaring people, you're totally in control. You're 100% in control. You can hear where you are, you know where you are. I'll guide you. And if you want to get out of any trance-like state, you've just got to open your eyes.
Mm.
It's
Because
just a conversation like this.
yeah, I've experienced, I've sort of experienced a type of hypnosis once before, and I remember there being a point where you get to the point where you're either going to be hypnotized and you feel it and you make a conscious decision. You feel like you're either going to be hypnotized or you're gonna allow yourself to fall into that trance-like state. And presumably the hypnotherapy is a bit like that. You kind of soften it in, someone kind of falls to a point and then it's up to them, or is this like a pure therapy thing where it's not like that at all?
The first things first, in the therapy, that's what is scaring people. I don't hypnotize people. If anything, I de-hypnotize you. It's like, for
Mm,
example, I'll ask you guys a question. If you go out and someone annoys you, and all of a sudden it gets to a point where you want to start having a fight with them, are you consciously doing that? Or if you're daydreaming, are you aware of that? Are you aware of what's going on? Or if you're doing a car journey that's
mm,
familiar, all of a sudden you're like, oh, how did I get here?
Mm.
Mm.
Why
That's
am
a
I in the living room?
trance-like state. It's an everyday occurrence. It's not a special thing.
mm.
Mm. And so you help people unpack that kind of subconscious element, right?
Effectively, I effectively
Yeah.
dehypnotize someone. If someone comes to me with an issue, they're coming to me in a hypnotized state because they don't want to feel that way
Yeah.
all of the time. You're not consciously depressed. You're not consciously having panic attacks. It's your subconscious hijacking your conscious mind.
And
Mm.
what is it that kind of influences that subconscious? Is it just the day-to-day routine? Is it your environment? Is there anything that, for example, if you were seeing a client and, you wanted to sort of dehypnotize them, as you say, like, would you ever advise sort of changing their environment, asking them to take up new routines? Does that kind of factor into this at all?
Like I said, it depends on the person. You treat the person and not the thing. So, for
Mm,
example, someone came to me recently and had a fear of flying. Once I got into the context of it, it turned out that when they were little, their dad would lock them in their bedroom and
mm,
wouldn't let them out until they cleaned their bedroom. They felt powerless and not in control.
Mm.
So that led into a fear of flying because they're on a plane. They're not in control. They
That's
can't,
mm.
interesting.
they're trapped. And so it's a symptom of what they've come to me with.
Yeah, I always find that sort of thing really interesting because I know a lot of people that have got a similar issue, and they go their entire lives without realizing the link between this one
Mm.
thing that happened to them when they were little and this thing that they're constantly afraid of for the rest of their lives. I mean, I've got things like that. I'm not going to talk about what they are. You guys know what
The
they are.
cuts.
But but it's really interesting that it goes back that far. Um, and I mean, I, I always absolutely find it fascinating that people don't realize. And I guess is hypnotherapy, would you say it's better for that, or can therapy do the same thing, or is there a specific thing that hypnotherapy does um that normal therapy won't do?
Mhm.
During my training, my trainer was a big fan of Bruce Lee. I don't know if you're familiar with whatever Bruce Lee did, but he had a form of fighting, and the what it's called has escaped me. But he learned various different techniques from different fighting styles. So if someone came up against him, he could adapt and take something out of his toolbox to defend himself. That's what cognitive hypnotherapy is. We take bits from different bits of therapy and we give
Mm,
them the tools to help them. It's like, here's the gym, there's all the equipment. If you try and do a leg press on a chest press machine, then that one's up to you.
You'll end up looking
It's
like Robert. No,
it's
I
all
think
about adapting.
Yeah, Josh, and this is fascinating, but I do want to kind of bring it back to the theme of today, the New Year's resolutions. And I think so obviously we've identified that, you know, for an effective resolution, you know, it has to genuinely come from you, right? You need to want to change.
Yeah.
It has to be genuinely driven by an inner desire. But just turning that on its head, what impact do you think a poorly planned or poorly thought out resolution can actually have on one's mental health?
If you set yourself up for failure, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. Putting it bluntly, I don't really have much else to say to that. If you set yourself
You're
up
open.
for failure, then that's what will happen.
Well, you're opening yourself up to more potential trauma, I guess.
Well, exactly, yeah.
But I
But-
think too, it goes back to the why. If you're doing it for the right reasons and you're in the headspace, you really want to achieve something, you're motivated to do it, it makes all the difference. Whereas if you're doing it to meet external pressure, you're probably less motivated because you're not doing it for yourself and you're not doing
Yeah.
it for the right reasons. So, I mean, it does all come together in that sense.
I love that idea of checking in with yourself.
Yes.
I've never thought of it like that. I kind of think of, because Matteo was talking about it earlier. He loves to meditate, and he gives himself affirmations, which is where he stares at the mirror
Yeah.
and kind of goes,
I'm a strong, independent man.
strong, independent
6 a day now.
And William, who lives with Matteo, has to listen to that in the other room.
How do
But
you
yeah,
do
the-
it then, Robert?
How do I do
How
it?
do you
He
check in
doesn't.
with
No,
yourself?
he likes
No,
that
I
idea,
do.
but he
I-
doesn't do it though.
No,
He doesn't
well,
practice what he preaches.
No,
No,
I mean,
yeah.
I think it comes down to different personalities, and it's interesting you said that as well, Josh. Is like the personality is different. The treatment will be different for everybody. Like you guys, we tried to do goals last year. We wrote all of our goals down at the start of the year, and me and Kieran kind of got it. We like writing down lists and then ticking things off lists because we're those sort of people. Whereas you guys,
you
I
don't
think
know
you-
that. You don't know
Yeah, but
that.
Robert, your resolution
guys
was
are different.
yours was
Fix the
yours was a to-do list. It was like
Yeah.
fix the cupboard.
But I did those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's not.
Yeah, but if I wrote down my to-do list, I would have done it
Yeah,
too.
go to
Oh,
the
that's-
shop, pick
that's
up
fine.
pick up
And
the
that-
spuds for
but
dinner.
it's what you do for yourself. And I think if Matt, if you get it from affirmations and you get it from looking in the mirror and telling yourself that you're doing a great job, then you're doing a great job.
No, I think honestly, I think like, and Josh, you mentioned this earlier. You know, again, I've come across this kind of figure that it takes apparently 66 days to form a new habit.
Yeah,
Timothy
I heard
Chalamet.
that.
No, that actually wasn't Timothy Chalamet. As much as I want to.
This
give
is
him
a
credit.
theme, Josh.
This is a theme. Yeah. But no,
Sound
honestly, like positive affirmations. I think it definitely. Kind of actually, I will bring it to the sort of Timothy Chalamet quote from the last episode, where life comes from you. Like
You speak French. Say his name right.
if you with the positive affirmations, right? You're looking for the positivity, right? You're not dwelling on the negativity, right? The positivity in yourself, and if you keep telling yourself that, and I've only been doing this for a week and a half, and I cannot say in eloquent enough words the impact that it has had on my life. Just Lily bought me this diary where every morning you write down what you're grateful for, positive affirmation, and how you're going to make the day great.
And then you read it to yourself in the mirror.
You read it again, you write it down every morning, and then in the evening you kind of do the reverse of that. It's like, what was a good deed you did? What did you accomplish? And honestly, 6 minutes, it has truly, truly changed my perspective on things.
In what way, though?
I honestly, maybe it's a subconscious, Josh, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but just genuinely, like, just being more positive, starting off the day with a positive outlook, looking at what you have accomplished, what you are good at, what you are capable at, like things that we used to take for granted. And I'll be honest, I used to laugh at people that put post-it notes on their mirror and sort of say those affirmations every morning. But yeah, Josh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Oh,
I do
he's
that.
saying
I've got one on my fridge.
But Josh has actually incriminated himself because he said that even though he's a hypnotherapist, he also makes resolutions that, and I don't know if you didn't say that they failed, Josh, and you said that this is probably one of the first years you've done it, but presumably it's so hard to kind of keep a resolution for that long that even with all the tricks in the book, it's not an easy task.
We're only human, aren't we? I mean, my lecturer put it beautifully. He came up with the saying, "We're not human beings, we're human becomings," because we're never truly going to be or get to the goal that we strive for. It's what keeps us up and keeps us going every day.
And so on that, with what keeps you going, I'm actually really curious. What is it, Josh, that drives you? What helps you get up every day and set a resolution or meet a client or decide to do what you're going to do? What drives you? What keeps you going?
My family, my
Mm.
daughter, my new 6-month-old daughter. She is the
Oh,
greatest
beautiful.
achievement of my life. Don't tell the missus, but she understands at this point. And for
Yeah.
myself, look, I'm gonna level with you guys. Postpartum depression is kicking my ass royally. And it doesn't mean I can't help others, but by me sharing my experiences and the fact that even sometimes a doctor needs a doctor.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'm
that's
not
really
calling myself
powerful.
a doctor.
No, but it's true. I mean, I hear that sort of, yeah, I've heard that sort of therapists
Have
have
therapists.
therapists, yeah, and they're
Mhm.
actually kind of advised to see therapists, right?
You
Because
need to.
you, you need to, because you keep hearing all, let's be honest. I mean, when you're a therapist, no one ever comes to you with positive, issues, right? It's always
Nah.
there's something wrong, right? And if you hear that 10 times a day, inevitably it's going to weigh on you, right? You're only human, so
Your job is to be trauma dumped on.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's great that you have an outlet,
Yeah.
Josh, and you do have that network. You said when you were, when you struggled with your previous profession, you had, your friend and your wife, and they helped you through that. Like it's this I mean, that's the premise of this podcast, right? Is just to destigmatize having those conversations.
Mm.
And so I'm so happy you said that.
Was
Yeah, thank you, because I'm sorry, Robert. Thank you very much for sharing that, because I think it's so powerful. And I went on your Instagram today, and where you eloquently spoke about the issues you're having with postpartum depression and how that's not only a woman's issue. So this is a good chance to plug Josh's Instagram, where he provides useful advice and talks about his own experiences and where he's arrived at. But I just want to try and move the conversation on slightly and ask, in working with your clients and for people who do therapy, what does success look like?
Oh, that's a loaded question. What does
you mean
success look like?
you mean success in terms of like success in
Mm.
achieving goals, or success in overcoming
Yeah, I
things, or
think
what do you mean?
success is probably the wrong word. I would say,
What's a
because
good
success is,
session
yeah,
look like?
what does progress look like? Like, how do you know in your clients that they're
When they
making
stop coming
progress
back.
in their sessions when they stop?
Is that when they stop coming back, maybe?
Yeah, it could
So
be.
I'll say this. I am the only businessman in the world you'll ever hear say, I want to be fired.
Yes.
Because if I'm fired, it means either something's gone on that shouldn't, which won't, or they don't need me anymore.
You got to work yourself out of a job.
Well,
Yeah. So actually,
that's it.
yeah. So just bringing it back to the kind of the root of today's conversation. Josh, if again, imagine we were clients, what advice, and imagine we were clients and, we're setting out on our new resolutions and we want to build these kind of sustainable habits. What advice would you give us when it comes to setting those realistic resolutions?
Start small. So I'm trying to think where I heard. So I listened to a podcast a couple of days ago with Chris Williamson, Diary of the CEO, and Stephen Bartlett mentioned about one guy who wouldn't come out of his bedroom, wouldn't clean, but every day they did a small thing. They took the Hoover out the cupboard, then they plugged it in, and then within a month, the whole place was clean and he was out of the house. Start small. Start really, really small. I think people are scared of starting small. They don't think that's worthwhile. It's like, oh, I got out of bed today. Is that all I did? But that's amazing. If that's all you could do for the day, then do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, and
that
I guess
goes
it's also
back
giving.
to, sorry,
Yeah, it's
that
also
goes
not
back to, are you doing it for yourself? You've got to do it for
exactly.
yourself. Don't do it for anyone
It's
else. Look after
yeah,
yourself.
it's got to be an impatience thing, doesn't it? It's a, I know it is with me. It's a, I want it all and I want it now, so I'm going to hit it as hard as I can. I'm going to do
Yeah.
it all right now.
Yeah, and it's all about acknowledging those small wins, like you said, Josh. If an achievement for you was getting out of bed, it's acknowledging that, and and I kind of I think that's why when it comes to resolutions, one of the issues I do have is it kind of paints you in a bad picture for the previous year. Kind of implies that you weren't satisfied with what you accomplished the year before, right? You want to do more. And that's why I think with I think it's important to just sort of ground yourself. And the fact that you made it through last year. I mean, last year was a tough year the last couple of years has been a tough year for a lot of people, right? The fact that you made it through, you're still here, like celebrate that. That's an accomplishment. I'm not saying stop. I think we always all need to grow, but just be content in the fact that you've made it to this point.
You said that in the mirror yesterday, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And it's going on my my booklet tonight.
On your posted wall.
My post-it wall. Yeah. I'm running out of space at this point.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, I've got a cutout of him right above my bed.
But somebody also said, I was speaking to someone about New Year's resolutions, and it's along the same advice as Josh gave on starting small. There's also the SMART, which is I forgot what the S means, but
Probably the most crucial part of that.
No, I was sitting here thinking what that S meant. What is it?
Specific.
Specific. That's
Measurable.
it. Measurable. Actionable. Achievable.
Not attainable.
Realistic.
Attainable.
Achievable,
Realistic.
attainable, same thing. Realistic, time bound.
And time bound. What do you think, Josh?
You might have to
Did you
repeat
hear
that.
all that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of
The fact
acronyms.
that the echo is still a little bit there, it's like, I'm not sure on that one.
What do you
maybe
think of
repeat,
SMART?
Repeat that, William. Maybe.
SMART. So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time bound.
I'm really sorry, I couldn't hear a word of that.
Yeah, we
wouldn't
don't
worry
have a
about it.
smart sound system.
That's all right. No, yeah, Josh. One thing we do have to wrap up this kind of segment because the whole point of this podcast is we're trying to make them kind of digestible for people's commute. So one thing I will just kind of bring us just to end off this segment is, so obviously you've given us your advice about how to sort of start sustainable resolutions, right? Start small, right? Just don't go straight for the end game. But is there any other closing wisdom or advice about resolutions, or just more generally about how men can protect their peace, if you will? Is there any closing wisdom you'd like to sort of share on that subject?
The sooner people realize that their plate, I'll use a chef analogy, less is more. If you want to put another ingredient on your plate, you have to take one off. Your plate hasn't gotten bigger just because a new year has come along. If you want, if you want to achieve something and you still struggle with productivity, putting more on your plate is not going to help you. It will just make a mess. Chaos brings chaos.
I think I might buy your book, Josh.
Yeah, I'm getting
got
flashbacks of the
Loads
bear.
of so many amazing one-liners.
I think you just got 4 more subscribers to your Instagram.
I guess on that note, Josh, if any listeners want to find out more about you, hear from you, or reach out to you, where can they find you?
That was my line.
Hey.
So yeah, I'm on my Instagram handle is Josh Does Therapy. I'm mostly active on LinkedIn. So I'm Joshua Samuels on LinkedIn, and my website is joshdoestherapy.com.
Thank you so
Excellent.
That's
much, Josh.
excellent. Thank you so much
And
for speaking out.
obviously you're welcome to stick around. We before we do close out this episode, we are going to end with tradition,
Oh, yeah.
and this is looking to our resident sage, William. He is wise beyond his years, for those that don't know him. And over the course of the last week or so, we received a few submissions around.
Not Robert's wife again.
I do not disclose my sources. But a lot of I've taken a different approach here where I've
Okay.
kind of consolidated a few of them because many of them had consistent themes. And those were mostly around reducing social media consumption.
Oh.
So my question to you, and the people's question to William,
Matt knows this is the worst subject for me because
which is kind of why I chose it.
Yeah.
What advice, and you don't necessarily have to practice this, but what advice, and this is for William, what advice would you have for people seeking to curb the amount of time they spend on social media?
We've had a lot of discussions about that over the last week, and I think it's probably the biggest resolution that people have, and I'm probably not the best person to ask about this, but I think if you're watching a show or reading a book, put your phone in another room for the duration of the time that you're watching the show or you read. Start small, and then from there, move to a point where you can turn the phone or the device, whatever it is, off at a certain point each evening, and don't look at it from there on in. But I don't practice what I preach there either.
That's an interesting one because it's funny you mentioned like your shows. I heard that, I don't know if this could be hearsay, but apparently that the way they develop TV series and shows now is under the assumption that people are also scrolling on their phones whilst watching.
I've heard that.
Well, you are, aren't you?
Well, you are, yeah. So I mean, I think
So
they kind
it'd be silly not to.
they've dumbed down the script. They repeat a lot more.
Simplified plots, all of that.
It's wild. I don't know, Josh. Do you have any on what Will said, his kind of resident advice? Do you have any kind of additional thoughts to add to that?
No, I think that's pretty spot on. I think, to be honest with you, we all do it. We all scroll. We're not all totally present. So no, I don't really have much to add to that, really. The only thing I
No, you
could
never know.
really say that I forgot to mention before is there's this thing called the therapeutic paradox. The more you try and avoid something, the more likely you're going to end up going back there. So it's like if you want to quit smoking, you quit smoking because it's stressing you out, but then you start overeating again, but then that's making you feel bad, and then you end up going back to smoking again. So I agree, you've got to start small, otherwise you will set yourself up for failure, and then you will beat yourself up, and that's not going to help.
So I guess the key takeaway here is just start small, right?
Small and smart.
Small and smart.
Small and smart.
Yeah.
Small and smart.
Stick that on a t-shirt.
And
Yeah.
All
post it.
smart.
And a post.
Or a heart,
That
Robert.
has very different meanings in certain contexts.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Well, with that, Josh, thank you so
Hold
much.
on,
Oh,
hold on. We got one more bit. Last time you did a quote at the end, remember?
I did do a quote.
Oh, did you bring a quote this time?
I actually do have a quote. if you
No,
want one.
no. We don't want that quote. We want this quote from this book.
Oh, no.
Hold on.
Which book is
This
it?
is Timothy Chalamet's autobiography. Unfortunately, he's only about 12, so it's only about 10 pages long. However, I did take down a quote earlier. Hold on.
Was it Life Comes From You?
No. It wasn't
Not
that one. He's got a lot, actually. I had to look quite hard, but here
He's
we
quite
go.
a wise
right?
man.
You ready?
Yeah.
You ready? We're only here for so long. Be happy. You could be hit by a truck tomorrow.
Otherwise, YOLO.
Wow.
I mean, like
Deep, right?
like
Deep
I said,
stuff.
modern
Deep stuff.
modern day Shakespeare.
What modern day Shakespeare,
It's got
modern
my
day
vote.
Socrates.
It's got
We
so
always
many
say it.
levels.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, we should finish on Josh, because before we came here, Josh, we were talking about the interview that we were going to have with you, and we were saying that there's a good quote on your Instagram, which is, "It's always darkest before dawn." And we always need to remember that. So that's a good one to finish on.
Sounds
Yeah.
like Winston Churchill.
Everything you say, Josh, is amazing. I've really enjoyed it. We
yeah,
should do another
Thank
one.
you, Josh. We'll definitely have you back. We
Yeah,
appreciate your time. I know it's late.
Pleasure.
And yeah, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank
Likewise.
you.
As we wrap this up, I want to leave you with something simple but important. And everything we've spoken about today highlights this. You're allowed to change your resolutions. You're allowed to move slower than you planned. And you're allowed to admit when something isn't working without turning that into a failure. You don't actually need a brand new version of yourself this year. You don't need to erase who you were last year to justify who you're becoming. Spend some time reflecting on everything you've accomplished in 2025 and be proud of that. Because the truth is, you've done enough. What most of us need isn't reinvention, it's honesty. Honesty about what we can sustain, what we're carrying, and what actually supports our mental health. So instead of asking, how do I push harder? Maybe the better question to ask yourself is, how do I take care of myself without guilt? Or how do I set realistic goals that can help develop long-term and sustainable positive habits? If you want to introduce new habits for the year, try asking yourself, what's one small thing I can do consistently that supports my mental health, not my ego? Because progress doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be real. So we all wish you a very positive, successful, and healthy 2026, and we look forward to growing with you all over the coming year.
Mind man. Life hits harder than we planned.